The roar of the crowd is a physical thing in Carver Hawkeye Arena, a wall of sound that vibrates up through the soles of your shoes. It's a chilly Iowa evening, but inside, the air is thick with heat and anticipation. They've come from every corner of the state, from watch parties spilling out of bars and living rooms across Iowa City, a pilgrimage of Hawkeye faithful. They are here, in this cathedral of Midwestern basketball, not just for a game, but for a homecoming. The PA announcer's voice cuts through the din, a familiar roll call that sends another seismic wave through the building. And at guard from Iowa, wearing number 22, Caitlin Clark. The eruption is deafening. It's a sound that transcends sport. It is pride, gratitude, a collective exhale of awe for a journey they have all witnessed, and in some profound way, shared. On the court, the young woman with the fierce gaze and the seemingly limitless range acknowledges the crowd with a small, knowing nod. She is home. But this moment, this visceral, electric connection, is merely the visible tip of a seismic shift. It is the epicenter of a revolution that is currently rewriting the rules of an entire professional league, recalibrating its economic machinery, and forever altering its place in the cultural firmament. Some athletes are solid contributors. Some ascend to elite status, their names etched in record books. But once in a generation, if the stars align, one arrives who does more than dominate. They dismantle the existing paradigm. They don't just change the score of a game. They change the scoreboard itself, the one that tracks television ratings, franchise valuations, sponsorship dollars, and cultural relevance. These are the figures who bend network schedules to their will, who force front offices to tear up decades-old playbooks, and who spark debates that rage in barbershops and boardrooms far removed from the court. Their impact is tectonic, reshaping not just how the game is played, but how it moves through the world and how all people talk about it. You do not need to own a skateboard to know the name Tony Hawk. You have never needed to watch a track meet to recognize the significance of Usain Bolt. Ask someone who couldn't tell a birdie from a bogey to name a single golfer, and 9 times out of 10, they will answer without hesitation: Tiger Woods. That level of fame transcends statistics and championships. It is about sheer, unimpeachable reach. These athletes became gravitational forces, pulling in audiences who were never part of their sport's traditional orbit. They made the niche mainstream, the specialized universal. This is precisely the phenomenon unfolding in real time in women's basketball. And at the vortex of it all is Caitlin Clark. For nearly 3 decades, the WNBA operated in a state of perpetual grind. It was a league built on resilience, fighting a multi-front war for respect, for viable television slots, for investment, for marketing muscle, and for mere space in an overcrowded sports landscape. Its greatest battle, however, was often metaphysical, fighting the persistent, condescending notion that women's basketball had to constantly explain and justify its own existence. The narrative was one of survival, of grit, of deserving a seat at the table. Then, Caitlin Clark arrived, and with a flick of her wrist from the logo, the conversation didn't just change, it inverted. The league no longer had to beg for attention or sell people on why it mattered. Suddenly, viewers who had never given a WNBA game a second thought were tuning in not out of a sense of charitable support or vague civic duty, but because it felt like essential viewing. It became must-see television. That distinction is everything. Obligation produces fleeting, guilt-driven spikes. Genuine curiosity, however, builds habits. It creates appointment viewing. It transforms casual observers into invested fans. The evidence of this shift is no longer anecdotal. It is etched in cold, hard data. Clark's 2024 NCAA championship game was a cultural event that drew nearly 19 million viewers. That number didn't just shatter every existing women's basketball record. It blasted past marquee men's tournament games and eclipsed recent NBA Finals broadcasts. Sports media braced for the inevitable post-collegiate comedown. It never came. Her WNBA debut with the Indiana Fever became the most-watched regular season game in ESPN's history covering the league. But the true shock for executives wasn't the spike. It was the persistence. Ratings didn't snap back to a pre-Clark baseline. they settled at a permanently elevated plateau, carrying through the end of the 2024 season and accelerating into 2025. Games featuring Clark now account for the overwhelming majority of the league's million-plus viewer broadcasts. Indiana Fever matchups, regardless of opponent, consistently dominate national ratings. Road games in buildings packed to the rafters to see her routinely outperform home games for long-established powerhouse franchises. This is not media hype. This is a fundamental alteration in consumer behavior. By 2025, total league attendance surged past the WNBA's own historic launch numbers from 1,997. The post-pandemic recovery didn't just stabilize, it exploded, accelerating faster than the most optimistic expansion models had projected. Markets once considered shaky or dormant suddenly became the subject of serious expansion talks and lucrative business proposals. Attendance doesn't shift because of marketing slogans or public service campaigns. It shifts because people believe in the product, in the spectacle, and that belief is now being expressed in sold-out arenas and television ratings, not just in social media likes. Yet, such a rapid, star-driven supernova inevitably generates intense heat and friction. As Clark's spotlight grew white-hot, legitimate tensions surfaced within the league's ecosystem. Veteran stars and their loyal fans wondered if years of foundational work, the grueling labor of legends like Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Cheryl Swoops, and Cynthia Cooper, and contemporary titans like Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, and Sabrina Ionescu were being unfairly overshadowed. The narrative, some argued, was being unfairly compressed into a single, blazing storyline. Critics, both inside and outside the game, began to question the authenticity of the moment, suggesting the sports media industrial complex had anointed one savior to prop up a league still fighting for its life. The question echoed, was Caitlin Clark truly that historically dominant? Or was the WNBA, along with a complicit media, exaggerating her importance for its own survival? For a time, it was a fair debate. Then, the 2025 season unfolded, and the argument moved from the abstract realm of hype into the concrete world of performance. What Clark accomplished in her rookie campaign wasn't merely impressive, it was disruptive on a generational scale. She didn't just break the WNBA's single-season assist record, she shattered it, demonstrating a preternatural passing vision that belied her newcomer status. She recorded the first rookie triple-double in league history. She became the first rookie in over a decade to be named to the All-WNBA First Team, an honor typically reserved for seasoned MVP-caliber veterans. Most tellingly, advanced metrics revealed she directly generated over 45% of her team's total offense, a staggering two-way burden of creation and scoring that only a handful of players in the entire history of modern basketball, men's or women's, have ever shouldered. She did this immediately. There was no grace period, no slow acclimation to the professional game's speed and physicality. Defenses designed schemes specifically to stop her, throwing double teams, aggressive traps, and borderline physicality her way from opening night. The pressure was immense and unrelenting. None of it worked. Not only did she not slow down, she adapted and, in many cases, thrived. This is where the debate shifts from emotion to cold, technical analysis. The core of Clark's offensive revolution is geometric. Her average three-point attempt distance settled around 28 feet. To contextualize, that is several feet beyond the range of even the most prolific, high-volume NBA shooters like Stephen Curry or Damian Lillard. It is a full 6 feet beyond the official WNBA three-point line. This is not a stylistic quirk. It is a strategic atom bomb. Standard WNBA defensive coverage models are not engineered to contest shots from that distance. The closeout becomes a marathon, not a sprint. When a single player forces a primary defender to guard her 28 feet from the basket, it stretches the entire defensive system to its breaking point. Help defenders are pulled into no man's land. Rotations are delayed by critical milliseconds. Passing lanes that are normally sealed suddenly yawn open. This gravitational pull creates easy opportunities for secondary scorers, turning role players into potent threats. Clark's game, therefore, is not simply about accumulating points and assists. It is about systematically dismantling defensive architecture. She forces coaches to scrap their textbooks and invent new coverages on the fly. She transforms the geometry of the half-court. This is influence that reshapes the very fabric of the game in real time. The WNBA has never lacked for talent or greatness. From its inception, it has been a league of legends. The difference has never been the quality of the product. It has been a matter of timing, leverage, and cultural critical mass. A historical parallel, while imperfect, is instructive. In the late 1970s, the NBA found itself in a precarious position. Ratings were declining. Financial instability loomed. The league's championship finals were, on occasion, deemed unworthy of live broadcast, relegated to tape delay. The NBA didn't necessarily need better players. It needed a narrative so compelling it would force the sporting public to pay attention. That change arrived with the entry of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Their rivalry, forged in the crucible of the NCAA championship, translated seamlessly to the professional stage. They did more than win titles. They injected the league with a charismatic, binary tension that captured the nation's imagination. They didn't just raise the level of play, they raised the ceiling of the league's commercial and cultural potential. Caitlin Clark is not Magic or Bird. Her path and context are uniquely her own. But in terms of timing, leverage, and her ability to pull a national audience into the orbit of her league, the resonance is undeniable. Her arrival coincided with a perfect storm. The rise of name, image, and likeness, deals in college sports, which made her a household name before she ever turned pro. The hyper-accelerated viral nature of modern media and a growing public appetite for women's sports. She didn't just ride this wave. She became the tsunami. Her impact has manifested in tangible, league-altering ways. By 2025, endorsement opportunities, once scarce and funneled to a select few veterans, began to proliferate across team rosters. The long, grueling battle for charter flights, a critical player safety and performance issue, was decisively won, with league-wide charter travel becoming standard operating procedure. Franchise valuations, long considered speculative, began to reflect real, explosive growth. Broadcast negotiations for the next media rights deal were no longer a plea for coverage. They were a confident presentation of a surging asset with a demonstrably expanding, younger, and more engaged audience. For the first time, the discussion surrounding the WNBA shifted from, "Does this league deserve to exist?" to, "How fast can this league grow, and how do we manage that growth without stifling it?" This evolution in the fundamental question represents more weight than any individual statistic or championship. One of the most profound yet subtle signs of Clark's impact is visible in the tenor of media coverage. The framing has moved decisively away from stories about legitimacy and survival. The conversation now mirrors that of any established major league. It focuses on burgeoning rivalries. Clark versus Ionescu, Fever versus Liberty, Aches versus Sun, playoff seeding drama, coaching strategies, salary cap intricacies, and draft prospects. This is how mature sports entities are discussed. Clark did not single-handedly build this new reality, but she applied immense pressure. At the precise moment the door was beginning to creak open, she forced it off its hinges, and the entire league has now marched through. This rapid ascent, however, has ushered the WNBA into a new and profoundly uncomfortable phase of its existence. Growth brings leverage, and leverage brings tension. The very success Clark has catalyzed is now highlighting the league's most entrenched structural inequities. The WNBA Players Association has been unequivocal. With revenues ascending, player compensation must follow. The revenue-sharing model must become more favorable. Salaries, which have lagged far behind even a fraction of their NBA counterparts, must see significant increases. Working conditions and benefits must reflect the league's new financial reality. The specter of a work stoppage in 2026, once a distant threat, is now a concrete scenario on the bargaining table. Herein lies the paradox Clark's presence has created. She is simultaneously the WNBA's most powerful economic engine and the focal point magnifying every grievance about labor value. Without her drawing power, a strike would be painful. With her at the peak of her influence, driving unprecedented engagement. The consequences of a stalled season would be catastrophic. If Clark enters the 2026 season healthy, entrenched as a superstar, and continuing to drive fan engagement, the calculus of a labor dispute changes entirely. The league is no longer operating from a position of scarcity, where it could perhaps weather a stoppage. It is operating from a peak of hard-won momentum. Momentum is a fragile commodity. Halting play risks alienating the very casual fans who have just been converted. Sponsors and broadcast partners, having finally invested serious capital, will not tolerate dead air. The cost of pressing pause has never been higher. The league now faces two divergent paths. The first is a work stoppage that freezes this historic growth in its tracks. Casual fans, their new viewing habits interrupted, drift away. Momentum evaporates. The league would survive, but it would lose years of progress and leverage, potentially irreparably damaging its relationship with a newly won audience. The second path is one of aggressive, forward-looking adaptation. It involves a new collective bargaining agreement that meaningfully improves revenue sharing, raises salary floors and ceilings, and modernizes league infrastructure. This wouldn't happen merely because the players demand it, but because the economic upside of a happy, thriving, and continuously growing league is now blindingly obvious to ownership. The uncomfortable truth about Caitlin Clark is not that she is overrated. It is that the WNBA, through no fault of its own built on decades of austerity, was structurally and commercially unprepared for the sheer velocity of change she would trigger. She didn't merely meet the existing expectations for a star. She obliterated them and established a new benchmark for impact. Once that standard is reset, there is no going back. The WNBA is no longer in the business of asking for attention. It is now in the far more complex business of managing the intense, scrutinizing glare of the mainstream spotlight. And what comes with that glare is a force no league can fully control: the rewiring of fan expectations. The new audience Clark attracted doesn't just want access to games. They demand transparency, consistency, and stakes that feel consequential. Casual viewers who first tuned in to see a singular phenomenon are now, almost without realizing it, becoming students of the game. They are learning team identities, tracking conference standings, debating coaching rotations, and questioning front office decisions on social media. This shift from passive observer to emotionally invested critic is quiet but potent. Once fans invest their time and passion, their patience for imperfection shrinks drastically. Scheduling oddities are met with louder complaints. Officiating is dissected with NBA-level intensity. Perceived competitive imbalances are called out immediately. The margin for error for the league office, for referees, for every franchise, has tightened exponentially. The WNBA is now being judged by the exacting standards of an established major sports league, not given the leniency afforded to a developmental one. Clark's presence has violently compressed the league's evolutionary timeline. What was anticipated to be a decade of gradual growth has been crammed into a season or two. Systems designed for incremental scaling, from league operations and public relations to player support and travel logistics, are now undergoing stress tests they were never engineered to withstand. Expansion talks, roster construction, depth charts, health and wellness protocols, media training, all of these pressures are converging at once. This is the visceral, often chaotic reality of hypergrowth. The pivotal question for the WNBA is no longer, will the audience stay? The evidence suggests a core of it will, forged by new habits. The critical question is, can the league itself evolve commercially, structurally, and culturally at the same dizzying speed as its audience's expectations? Momentum is not a perpetual motion machine. It requires constant fueling, careful stewardship, and smart investment. Fans who feel a genuine sense of ownership will not quietly disengage if they feel the product is being mismanaged. They will notice every gap, every misstep, every instance of the league failing to match their own elevated passion. Caitlin Clark, therefore, did not just deliver viewers. She delivered a set of heightened, irrevocable expectations. And expectations are the ultimate engine of accountability. The WNBA has crossed a Rubicon where excuses about the long journey or building slowly ring hollow. Timelines feel shortened. Decisions carry the weight of potential legacy. This is the inherent price of true relevance. Once you occupy this rarefied space in the cultural conversation, there is no retreating behind potential. Every move, from the commissioner's office to the draft room, matters profoundly. This pressure is also forging a new reality inside the locker rooms and film sessions across the league. A brighter spotlight elevates standards. Preparation becomes more meticulous. Accountability becomes sharper, more immediate. Players are no longer competing solely for wins or personal accolades. They are performing under a microscope of national scrutiny that simply didn't exist 2 years ago. Film study intensifies. Scouting reports grow more detailed. Every turnover, every defensive lapse, every missed assignment is amplified, discussed on talk shows, and memed on social media within minutes. This environment is where true separation begins. Some teams and players will thrive under this heightened intensity, their games rising to meet the moment. Others will be exposed by it. Depth of roster, once a concern for die-hard fans, becomes a national talking point. Coaching decisions are scrutinized play by play. The development of young talent can no longer be hidden behind promises of potential or given years to mature. The league is moving too fast, and the lights are too bright. Clark, by her very presence, has simultaneously raised the floor of the league's visibility and the ceiling of its ambitions. Opponents don't just game plan for her offensive arsenal. They prepare for the psychological weight of performing in what feels like a playoff atmosphere every single night. That pressure radiates outward, testing role players, exposing shaky rotations, and turning bench production into a topic of national discourse. The defensive adjustments are already telling. Traps come quicker and more aggressively. Physical contact is initiated earlier and more frequently. Coaches make tactical adjustments mid-quarter, not at halftime. This isn't personal. It is professional survival. The entire ecosystem is learning in real time how to operate at this new breakneck pace and under this blinding spotlight. What makes this golden moment so fragile is that growth, by its nature, is uneven. Some franchises, through savvy management, existing star power, or market size, are perfectly poised to capitalize on this surge. Others, through misfortune or mismanagement, are scrambling to catch up, risking being left behind. This imbalance creates competitive and economic tension, but it also acts as a ruthless agent of evolution. This is how leagues mature and solidify, not through comfort and stability, but through relentless pressure cooker competition that reveals weaknesses and forces immediate adaptation. The WNBA has entered an era where every flaw in its system, from competitive balance to marketing strategy, will be identified and magnified almost instantly. And in this new reality, addressing those flaws is no longer a long-term goal. It is an immediate imperative. This story is still being written. The final chapters of this transformative period are yet to be composed. The power dynamics between players and owners, the geographic expansion of the league, the negotiation of a groundbreaking media rights deal, the cultural entrenchment of its stars, none of this is settled. The decisions made in boardrooms over the next 24 months will define the WNBA's trajectory for the next decade, not merely reflect on the last one. Caitlin Clark's journey from that Iowa hometown hero to the epicenter of a professional sports revolution is the catalyst, not the conclusion. She collapsed timelines. She forced overdue conversations. She demonstrated irrefutably the latent commercial power that existed within the league all along. Now, the burden shifts. The league must match the urgency, ambition, and sheer audacity that its new audience brings to the arena every single night. Growth without a sturdy, adaptable structure is inherently fragile. This is the nuance often lost in the celebration of stardom. Superstardom is not the finish line. It is the ultimate stress test. It exposes which foundations are solid and which are built on sand. The WNBA has proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it is strong enough to survive its long struggle for relevance. The compelling, unanswered question now is whether it possesses the vision, the courage, and the operational brilliance to maximize this unprecedented moment. Because the fans are no longer just watching, they are invested. They are arguing over foul calls in group chats, analyzing salary cap implications on podcasts, debating draft prospects on forums, and following injury reports with held breath. This is the holy grail of sports fandom. Real, emotional, week-to-week investment. And that level of investment demands something in return. Honesty from the league about its challenges, ambition in its goals, and flawless execution in its pursuit of them. The saga of the WNBA's great acceleration is ongoing. The tremors that began in Iowa City are still radiating outward, reshaping the landscape. The outcome is not predetermined. It will be determined by the wisdom of its leaders, the unity of its players, and the sustained passion of the millions of new eyes now fixed upon it. The revolution was televised. What comes next will determine if it becomes a lasting dynasty.